Welcome to Walking the Torah Portions. I'm Tyler Merwin, and this is Torah Portion, KORACH. This week's portion is Numbers 16:1 through 18:32. The Haftarah this week is 1 Samuel 11:14 through 12:22. KORACH is the name Korah. As in our opening line, it says, "Now Korah, the son of Ahizar, the son of Kohath, son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the sons of Peleth, the sons of Reuben, took men." Numbers 16:1. So this week's portion begins with the rebellion of Korah. So who was Korah anyway? Korah was a leader of the clan of the Kohathites, the Levitical clan that was tasked to carry the most holy items of the tabernacle. Our opening line lists Dathan and Abiram and On. These are not Levites, but these are actually Reubenites. So in the arrangement of the camp of Israel, when they were camped around the tabernacle, Reuben was with Simeon and with Gad, and they were camped on the south side of the tabernacle. Now the clan of Kohath, because remember the clan of the Levites were camped also around the tabernacle, but on the kind of like the inner circle. The clan of Kohath was also positioned on the south side of the tabernacle. So you can see positionally how these two tribes could brew some trouble together. Now the term where it says that they took men is actually a term you can search in Scripture, and you can kind of see it related to gathering and insurrection. It seems to have a theme to it. "And they rose up before Moses with a number of the people of Israel, 250 chiefs of the congregation, chosen from the assembly, well-known men. They assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron and said to them, 'You have gone too far. For all in the congregation are holy, every one of them, and Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is among them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh?'" Numbers 16:2 and 3. So what exactly is Korah's charge? Korah is challenging Moses' authority and basically accusing him of handpicking his brother, Aaron, to be the high priest, which of course would be nepotism. The people are depressed and discouraged because they had just lost the opportunity to enter the promised land because they listened to the 10 spies. And instead of going into the promised land, they're sentenced by God to wander and die in the wilderness for the next 40 years. Well, it's actually 38 years because it actually started from the Exodus. It's easy to spark a rebellion when things aren't looking very good, when things are looking bleak, when everybody's temperaments are down. It's easy to believe the lie that it was leadership's fault and not actually your own sin from your lack of faith. So if we take the sovereignty of God out of the equation, so remove him and just look at this from a purely physical, earthly perspective, Korah kind of has a point that could be argued and was argued. So Moses, Aaron, and Korah are all from the clan of Kohath, so they're all family members. So Korah thought that since Moses came from the firstborn line of Kohath, which was Amram, then the high priest, the number 2 position, as it was looked at in the camp, should have come from the second-born line, which would be Izhar, which is Korah's family, whom Korah was the firstborn in this particular generation. Also, before the incident of the golden calf, remember that the firstborn males from every tribe were considered to be kind of the priests. So not a selected specific group of people, as we know now as the Levites. So God gave this duty to the sons of Aaron after the incident of the golden calf and redeemed the firstborns for all of the Levites. This is where any tribe or family could perceive some sort of an injustice or a slight to them, if you take God out of the picture once again. Now, do you remember who was the firstborn tribe that was actually passed over and wasn't treated as the firstborn due to his actions? That, of course, was Reuben. Now, who was leading the rebellion along with Korah? The Reubenites. Someone else who also felt slighted. they had a chip on their shoulder. I think it's easy to see how a defeated and depressed people could easily be stirred into a rebellion with a few perceived grievances and fleshly arguments. But the truth is, the Holy One himself selected Moses for his role, and God also appointed Aaron to his position. God alone declared that the priesthood would be descended from Aaron and not from Moses or any other human being. The leadership of Israel was handpicked by God, and challenging that is, in fact, challenging God himself. When Moses heard it, he fell on his face, and he said to Korah and all his company, "In the morning, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh will show who is his and who is holy, and will bring him near to him. The one whom he chooses, he will bring near to him. Do this, take censers, Korah and all his company, put fire in them, and put incense on them before Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh tomorrow. And the man whom Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh chooses shall be the Holy One. You have gone too far, sons of Levi." Numbers 16, 4-7. Everyone remembers what happened to Nadab and Abihu when they offered the strange fire before Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. It's also implied in our text that they were also aware that that same fate that struck Nadab and Abihu could befall anyone who accepted this challenge if they were in fact wrong. So Moses actually delayed this challenge to the next day. This is another act of mercy, giving anyone who was maybe just stirred by their emotions time to rethink their actions. And Moses said to Korah, "Hear now, you sons of Levi, is it too small a thing for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do service in the tabernacle of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and to stand before the congregation to minister to them, and that he has brought you near to him, and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you? Would you seek the priesthood also? Therefore, it is against Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh that you and all your company have gathered together. What is Aaron that you grumble against him?" Numbers 16, 8-11. Are we content with our current role that God has given us? Or do we envy a position or a role or a calling that God hasn't given us, or maybe hasn't given us yet? Remember when King David was anointed to be king, he was a shepherd and was a shepherd for many years before he ever saw his calling come to pass. We have to be patient also. And Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram and the sons of Eliab, and they said, "We will not come up. Is it a small thing that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you must also make yourself a prince over us? Moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up." Numbers 16, 12-14. Remember in verse 1, there was the three from the tribe of Reuben. We had Dathan, we had Abiram, and we had On. But here, On is not listed. He's missing. The sages teach that On had a wise and righteous wife who persuaded him not to continue with the rebellion, and he listened to her. We who are men that are married to righteous wives, I include myself in that count, need to take heed of their counsel, as they many times will bring spiritual depth to a situation that we may only be seeing through a physical lens. And I can attest to you, in my life, that's true. So imagine the level of envy and bitterness that would lead them to refer to Egypt, the land of slavery, as a land flowing with milk and honey. Moses tells Korah and his followers to report to the tabernacle the next day with their own censer, and Aaron will be there with his censer. Now it's said that Aaron brought his own censer, not the one normally used in the tabernacle. This was kind of to ensure there was an even playing field and Aaron didn't have a stacked deck. So they all showed up at the Mishkan, all 250 of them. The glory of the Lord appeared before them, and God told Moses and Aaron to separate themselves from the congregation, so he could consume them. But Moses once again intercedes for the people. And they fell on their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and will you be angry with all the congregation? And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh spoke to Moses, saying, Say to the congregation, Get away from the dwelling of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Numbers 16, 22 through 24. Moses then goes into the camp, near the camp of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And he spoke to the congregation, saying, Depart, please, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest you be swept away with all their sins. Numbers 16, 26. This shows us another pattern that's important for us to understand in our walk. God told the people, through Moses, to separate themselves from the rebels, and if not, they would become collateral damage. When our brothers and sisters are going through trials, we are the hands and feet of Messiah. And most of the time, God's also testing us to see if we're going to step up and help out. But if someone keeps going through the same trial again and again, we need to pray for discernment. If God is actually inflicting this trial as a rod of correction towards them, we need to ensure that we aren't taking the rod out of His hand, or we risk getting hit by that same rod. It's like a parent who never lets their children feel the painful consequences of their poor decisions, but are always rescuing them. So the child never learns and keeps on making the same mistake over and over again. Our default should always be to help. But if you're getting stung in the process, step back and pray about the situation. That sting you feel may be God actually telling you to get out of His way. Moses tells the people that if these rebels die in a normal way, like all people do, then God has not sent him. But if God creates something new, and the ground opens up and swallows them and all their belongings, then they will know that God has sent Moses and that they have rebelled against the Most High. And as soon as he had finished speaking all these words, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up, with their households and all the people who belonged to Korah and all their goods. So they and all that belonged to them went down alive into Sheol, and the earth closed over them. And they perished from the midst of the assembly, and all the children who were around them fled at their cry, for they said, Lest the earth swallow us up. And fire came out from Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh and consumed the 250 men offering the incense. Numbers 16, 31 through 35. Korah's sons were actually not part of this rebellion, and they were not with their father, and so they weren't killed. As a matter of fact, you would find that they would later write a number of psalms that we have recorded, such as Psalm 42. Because the 250 offered incense to a holy God in a holy place, the censers had attained a holy status. Even though it killed the persons holding them, the censers themselves could not be used again for ordinary purposes. Eleazar, Aaron's son, is instructed to hammer them out so that it can become a bronze covering for the altar. But on the next day, all the congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and against Aaron, saying, You have killed the people of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And when the congregation had assembled against Moses and against Aaron, they turned toward the tent of meeting, and behold, the cloud covered it, and the glory of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh appeared. Numbers 16, 41 and 42. God again threatens to consume the whole congregation. Moses tells Aaron to get his censer, put fire on it from the altar and incense, and run quickly to the congregation to make atonement for them, because the plague had begun. Aaron did this and ran out and cut off the plague, but it had already killed 14,700 people at that point. Aaron, using his censer as a way of stopping death, showed that since the 250 rebels used censers and died, The proper use of the censer in the proper hands will in fact save life, not take it. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel, and get from them staffs, one for each father's house, from all their chiefs according to their father's houses, 12 staffs. Write each man's name on his staff, and write Aaron's name on the staff of Levi. For there shall be one staff for the head of each father's house. Then you shall deposit them in front of the tent of meeting before the testimony, where I meet with you, and the staff of the man whom I choose shall sprout. Thus I will make to cease from me the grumblings of the people of Israel, which they grumble against you." Numbers 17, 1-5. God promises to make a supernatural sign for whom He has chosen. The 12 staffs were collected, one from each of the tribal chieftains, each with the name of that tribe inscribed on the staff. Now, these most likely were well-used staffs. They were kind of heirlooms for the tribe, so it wasn't like a bunch of sticks that all looked the same. They were probably all very uniquely decorated and, like I said, family heirlooms. So these were placed in the Mishkan before Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh overnight. The next day, the staff of Aaron, which was for the house of Levi, had sprouted, put forth buds and blossoms, and bore ripe almonds. Moses brought the staffs back out before the people, so everyone saw that it was Aaron and Levi that was chosen. And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said to Moses, "Put back the staff of Aaron before the testimony, to be kept as a sign for the rebels, that you may make an end of their grumblings against me, lest they die." Thus did Moses as Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh commanded him. So he did. Numbers 17, 10 and 11. So now, inside the Holy of Holies is the Ark of the Covenant that contains the 2 tablets, the jar of manna, and the sprouted staff of Aaron. These testify to God's covenant, His provision, and His election. Now that Aaron's position has been reestablished to the people, chapter 18 reiterates the duties of the priests and the Levites. The Levites are to work with the priesthood and to guard over them and their tabernacle. But only the priests can handle the holy things. Everyone needs to stay in their own designated lanes and duties, because violation will incur wrath from God. God explains what parts of the offerings are given to the priest, who's allowed to eat it, and where it must be eaten. And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said to Aaron, "You shall have no inheritance in their land, neither shall you have any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the people of Israel." Numbers 18:20. God then goes on to explain the provision for the Levites, as it's the tithe from the people. "For the tithe of the people of Israel, which they present as a contribution to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, I have given to the Levites for an inheritance. Therefore I have said of them that they shall have no inheritance among the people of Israel." Numbers 18:24. So the Levites are provided for through the tithe, and the priesthood provided through various portions of various offerings. But the Levites who received the tithe were also required to present a tithe to the Holy One. "Moreover, you shall speak and say to the Levites, when you take from the people of Israel the tithe that I have given you from them for your inheritance, then you shall present a contribution from it to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, a tithe of the tithe. And your contribution shall be counted to you as though it were the grain of the threshing floor, and as the fullness of the winepress." Numbers 18:26 and 27. The tithe of the tithe is a principle that my community, River Life Tabernacle, actually practices. So, a minimum of 10% of what's brought in through tithes and offerings is sown back into our community for various needs. Some of it is sown to support our sister congregation in Kenya. Some of it's used in our local community for different needs. We've had people that have had house fires that have lost everything. We've had widows that we've come to find out they have no relation to us at all, but we find out that they don't have any money to pay their electric bill. Things like that we've been able to step in and be the hands and feet of Yeshua. And like Pastor Mark says, if a widow on fixed income has a refrigerator break, she needs more than our prayers. She needs a refrigerator that works, and we need to provide it. This is a solid practice that should be strongly considered with any healthy community, and something that God will definitely bless you for. So let us strive to walk in faith and not by the side of our flesh. Let's not envy, be jealous, or have bitterness and have that have any place within our communities. And let's not get in the way of God's correction with our mercy, because His correction is actually mercy. I pray this teaching has been edifying. Let's lift up the name of the Holy One. With love, in Echad, Shalom.